welcome to another episode of Hour of Healing. Friends, we are so grateful and thankful to God that you are here. You know, it's been an honor and a privilege so far this year with the topics that by God's grace we've been discussing. But as we promised you, we have really great guests joining us again and even new guests joining us as time goes on. Today, for those of you who have been following us throughout season one, we have our dear brother of the show, Dr. Bright Ajay, with us today. Friends, you know that he is a friend of the show. He is a man of God. He has his doctorate in physical therapy and also works as a real estate agent. Right now, he resides with his two beautiful daughters and wife in Texas. I believe it's Dallas. Um, and he has been all about impacting people's lives. Friends, you meet Bright, you talk with Bright, and his whole life is about impact. Because at the end of the day, dear friends, if you do not make an impact, what is the essence of your life? So we are so blessed, or we were so blessed by the knowledge and the wisdom that Bright, through the grace of God, was able to share with us in the various episodes that he joined us in season one. And we are looking forward to what we will be talking about today. The topic for discussion, dear friends, is evaluating opportunities. Evaluating opportunities. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Bright.
Thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure. And thanks for the good work you're doing. I've been following.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So we will dive right in, Dr. Bright, because I know we have a lot to cover. Evaluating opportunities. I always try to give a background as to how these topics came to mind. And this happened to be one of the interesting topics that came my way because you hear, especially as a young person or someone who just entered the work field not too long ago, you hear many people talk about, I'm looking for the right opportunity. I'm looking for my opportunity to come. And I sat down and I asked myself that what really do we mean when we talk about opportunities? Because yes, there have been a lot of sayings about opportunities. I believe Leonard Ravenhill is the one who said that the opportunity of a lifetime must be seized in the lifetime of that opportunity. I personally see opportunities as open doors. But the problem is, even prisons have doors. Nobody gets to prison without going through a door. And so, as I thought about a recent opportunity that I personally had gotten and passed on, I sat down to evaluate why I passed that opportunity. And so, I thought it would be a great conversation for us to have today because, Dr. Bright, I don't think a lot of our young people evaluate opportunities when they see them. So let's get right into it and lay the foundation for our discussion today. Dr. J, how would you describe or define opportunities for us?
Well, thanks you again for having me. And this is a wonderful topic because I think it's when we're younger, we used to have English as a present continuous. This is something that we keep facing over and over and over. And so it would be helpful if we can get some sort of grip on it. We'll attempt to try to do justice to it. So, in opportunities, I think a couple of definitions that I may use. The keywords in there that says something favorable, a
Mm,
favorable time or occasion. So, when you talk about something being seen as an opportunity, it has to be favorable. And I think that's very, very important in the sense of favorable to who?
mm, mm,
Right?
mm,
Favorable is a keyword. That's what I like about it. It's favorable to who? And then another one that I think of sometimes is this situation or condition favorable again for the attainment of a goal.
mm.
So that's another one you say situation or condition favorable for attainment of it. So my two questions then become who is it favorable to? And then that word comes again, goal.
Mm,
That means
mm,
there has to be a purpose. For that thing to be favorable to you, you have to have a goal and a purpose. And I think even as believers, scripture even says all things work together for good for those that love God, that God according to his purpose. So for
mm,
me, the first thing
mm.
you always have to figure out is the purpose or the goal. That's
Wow.
the first part. So you kind of work backwards. And then once you know that, then you see that chance is it favorable to you in
Mm.
pursuit of that goal?
Wow. Wow.
Sometimes it might be vertical, sometimes it might be lateral, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the question is, is it favorable? Because if it's not, there's no need to waste time on it. But if
Absolutely.
it is in one way, shape, or the other, help you the attainment of that goal, then that's an opportunity that's worth thinking about before you make those next steps.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much for that loaded answer or definition for us. And I believe we will try to unpack this as we go through the conversation today. It's interesting, Dr. Bright, that you talk about purpose in opportunities. For those who have been following us continuously on this show, we talked about purpose at length in the last recording for our hour of healing. And I believe one of the things that I had made mention is the fact that purpose doesn't have its source in an object or a person, but the maker or the creator of that object. I believe that was a sure thing that success in life is guaranteed. And the reason why I made that bold statement at that time was that success depends a lot on purpose. And so if the purpose is not in the person, then from the perspective of the creator or the maker or the manufacturer of that thing, the success of what is created is guaranteed. But for you to get that success, you need to know the purpose. So I think it all comes home to what you are talking to us about today. And so, based on your definition, I'm going to make another association, and I will ask your opinion on this, because one of my ways of defining purpose, success in life, is that success is when preparation meets opportunity. And you are here telling us about opportunity being a favorable condition to a goal or a purpose. And so then the question then becomes, how does one know that the favorability of what is being considered is for them or is for something else?
Right. So if I take it this way, right, put it, everybody wants to be successful. We all
Correct.
want to be successful. So if we indeed we take the approach that success is preparation meeting opportunity, then we have one half of the equation, right, the opportunity. But there's a second part, which I think sometimes a lot of us are lacking, that preparation.
Mm,
Right.
mm,
So for something to be favorable, for you to be able to take advantage of it, you have to be prepared.
wow.
And so a lot of times, that's the part that I think we fail, is that the work in the background to get you prepared so that when
Mm,
that opportunity, that chance comes, you're ready.
mm,
Because it's like the thief. It says if the home owner of the house knew the time the thief was going to come, they will not leave the door open, right? It's the same thing. If you
yep.
know when the opportunity to come, you'll be like, oh, let me prepare then. No, but that's why it's an opportunity. It's a chance.
Mm,
But you have to be alert. You have to be prepared. That means you have to invest in yourself. You
mm,
have to, once you know what the purpose or what your goal is, you may know one or two or three things that you need to get you to that point. And so you have to start working on that. You don't wait for the opportunity to come before you decide. That'll be too late. And I think for a lot of us, that's why sometimes we don't end up being successful is, everything you do in life to a degree has to tie to that greater goal,
mm, mm,
right? Because this is a journey. It's not a sprint.
mm.
And so depending on what it is or how big a success you want it to be or how big an impact you're trying to become, well, it helps you also define the level of preparation you have to put in and the
Correct.
level of hard work you have to put in. And so once you have that, then you are ready whenever that opening comes.
Mm,
That's how you know it becomes favorable to you
mm,
because you're
mm.
ready,
Because
and
you're
you know
ready.
you can take full advantage of it
Mm,
and you're
mm.
ready to take off.
Wow, wow, dear listeners, you know if an opportunity or something is favorable to you when you have prepared, when you are ready. I think that is very powerful, Dr. Bright. Thank you so much. So then the question then becomes, are all opportunities good?
Right, right. So I think the two ways based on what we've talked so far, right? The simple answer will be no, in the sense that if it's not something that's going to favor you in the pursuit of your goal or your purpose,
Mm,
then not so much. Now, there's another way we can also look at it in the sense that you always can learn something from
Mm,
any situation.
mm,
In the sense that sometimes the best way to make comebacks is when you learn from your mistakes. So even though the opportunity may not have been quote unquote good for you, the question is what lesson did you gain or derive
mm.
from it? I think that's a key part. I think sometimes you learn more also even in the adverse or in the setbacks,
Yes.
than always just when everything works the way you want to. So I think it's all about the approach and an open-mindedness that in any situation, the question is whether you took full advantage of it or not, is what are the lessons you gathered from it and how does
Mm,
that impact you going forward. I think a
absolutely.
lot of times, a lot of us sometimes, that's the challenge, is having that reflective attitude, stepping back and
Mm.
then looking at it, like the year 2023. I was asking my wife, how many people had New Year resolutions? And how many people in December 2023 went back
Mm,
and looked at those resolutions?
mm.
And then we come back 2024, we do the same
And
thing in
make
January,
make
make
new
them.
resolutions.
And how many even check monthly or quarterly? Or, I was telling my wife, I was like, you need to write these down somewhere. And depending on what goals or what they are, you come back weekly, monthly, quarterly,
Mm,
to do that. And so I think all opportunities can be good provided we take lessons from them. But
mm,
at the minimum, you try not to waste too much time in the sense that if it's something that you know clearly is not favorable to you in the
mm.
pursuit of what it is you're about, then there may not be the need to waste that time on it.
Okay. So then is it safe to ask, based on what you're saying, that with every opportunity, one has to give room for renegotiation and reevaluating of that opportunity, even whilst you are taking advantage? Does that sound right?
Absolutely, because sometimes what you think might happen and what actually happened might be different.
Mm, mm,
There are only so many things you control, and there may be certain presumptions you may have made. So even as you take stock of that opportunity, even as you still have to be constantly evaluating that. Is
mm,
this still tied into the goals? Because maybe when you took advantage, you had certain things you had set in front of you that these are the A, B, C, what I want to achieve. You
mm.
go in there and realize they may not necessarily be what you thought. And so it brings me to one thing that I think we would have touched on anyway at some point is communication.
Okay.
Because remember, the opportunity, you're the one trying to take advantage of it. But on the other side, somebody may be giving you the opportunity. They may have different expectations.
Mm,
So part of the issue is making sure to a certain degree, both you are yoked on the same level somewhat. Because if what you're hoping to get out of them, what they're hoping to get out of you doesn't mesh at some point,
mm.
then it gives room for some of that conflict. And that's where some
Absolutely.
of those evaluations constantly, even while you're in it, happens.
Mm,
Because you have to keep realigning yourself to that in the sense that it's not so much about the job itself. Let's say you take something at McDonald's because you want to be able to learn how to communicate with people effectively.
mm.
Because ultimately, maybe the job you want to do is something that you'll be needing that practice.
Absolutely.
So sometimes it's not looking at just the bigger picture, but I think you have to be able to go back to the drawing board. Because if you took a job like that and you're stuck in front of the computer where you don't get to interact with anybody,
Mm,
all of a sudden that has not been as favorable as you thought. Because maybe you want to
absolutely.
be at the window interacting with people so you can get the feedback in terms of your mannerism, verbal, non-verbal communication. But they hired you for that, and then maybe as soon as you go and now you're stuck or you're in the back office, just you
Mm,
are adding data entry.
wow.
Now you have to reevaluate that opportunity because what you set out to achieve and what you're getting, the question is, okay, is there going to be a chance for you to move from that position maybe to the window which you assumed or
Mm,
not? Because if it's not, then you have to reevaluate. So yeah, I think there's definitely room to do that even when you get the opportunity is to go back based on what it is you set out to gain from the experience. Is that
mm.
happening or not?
Mm. Wow, Dr. Bright, thank you so much. So far, even with the little that we've done, I think you are unlocking a lot of very key things for our listeners today that will bring about healing. And I will tie into what you were saying because I believe that links to a question that I have, which is how we evaluate opportunities before we take them, and even whilst we are taking advantage of those opportunities. But I want to add a bit to what you were saying because you did mention that sometimes opportunities that we have an idea and then it doesn't work out that way. And I believe that I personally have this saying in life that the only purpose for making mistakes is to learn from them. I don't think anybody can live a mistake-free life in
Right.
our day and age.
Right.
I mean, for all you know, somebody will give you an advice on social media, and that will
Right.
be something else. So I think that making mistakes is at an all-time peak just because of accessibility of
Right.
information and
Right.
resources. Because whenever there is an abundance of information, then
Right.
the problem becomes what is the wisdom being applied to it, in my opinion.
Right.
So I
Right.
think that mistakes are bound to happen. So
Right.
from what you're sharing with us, I believe that the issue is not making the mistake,
No.
but rather not learning from it. Because
Correct.
if you don't learn from it, then obviously the
Correct.
chances of you making that mistake
Repeating it.
again,
Yep.
whether in the same form or even in a slightly different form, it's just you just put a
Right.
new blanket over it and it becomes the
Right.
same mistake again. So I think those are very powerful things that you're sharing with us. But I
Right.
want us to talk a bit more about evaluating opportunities. I know you started
Right.
with that, but I think
Right.
that will be very helpful for our listeners today.
Right. So one of the things I would say, one of the things earlier on my wife used to criticize me was that I was treating her like a student. And my
That was
students
not
do
good.
give me that feedback a lot. And that's because of what you just alluded to, where my thinking always was if I made an error, if I
Mm,
made a mistake, or if you did, we have to be able to sit back down and go over that so that I can learn the lessons I need from that
mm,
so
mm.
I don't repeat that. I can't just assume that, oh, I knew or you knew why that mistake was done and just move on, because then guess what? It's bound to happen again.
Yes.
And to me, that was more the frustrating part, is when you didn't dissect what may have gone wrong or what happened.
Mm,
Because sometimes they're very simple adjustments. It doesn't have to
mm,
be anything huge. But the fact that you don't take time to do that, and a lot of students, for instance, they take an exam in school. The questions that you miss, do you go back and try to figure
mm,
out why did I
mm.
miss those? Versus, oh, I got these right, move on to the next thing. Well, guess what? You meet those questions again. And so that's kind of my approach. And so tying into evaluating opportunities, I think a lot of times some of the simplest rules we hear about lots of different things, but sometimes I think they're too simple, don't apply them. You have to be able to somehow objectively evaluate the opportunity. And what
Mm,
I mean by that, I think most of the time before you decide is that opportunity right for you, you have to be able to write some things down.
mm,
Like I said, going back to the goals, you have to write what are you hoping to achieve from that opportunity.
mm.
A lot of times people just, oh, it's my mind, it's my mind. That's how we deceive or trick ourselves. You have to be able to hold yourself accountable and even have someone else hold you accountable. And the way
Yes.
you do that is you have to be able to write certain things down. It may be one or two or three things that I hope to be able to do with this opportunity. And there have to be a time scale. In school they teach you where you do goals. There has to be time scale. It has
Mm,
to be practical. So I think one of the fundamental things you do, objectively, is to ask yourself. People do this. I think sometimes they do it in couples therapy, whatnot. Write all the pros and cons
mm,
from that opportunity to even decide is it worth your time to take
mm.
that. And when you do, what are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 goals or achievements you hope to accomplish by the time you're done with that? And how are you going to check those? And what
Mm.
timeline is on that? Because again, if it's an opportunity, you're not going to be stuck in the same thing for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so that's also very essential. And I always think having somebody hold you accountable is key. A
Mm.
trusted person to be able to help, because there's so many distractions. Life happens. But
Yes.
having that person that you trust to be able to help you tie in and keep you on that, helps you to now come back after 2 months, after 6 months, after
Mm.
1 year, after 5 years, and go back and say, okay, did I accomplish what I set out to? And
Mm.
if I didn't, why not?
Mm.
And if I did, what next?
Wow.
Because you always have to look at it it's a continuum, it's a journey. And so, yeah, maybe you set out to achieve this goal for a certain purpose. You don't achieve it and stay there. Now you basically wasting that time.
Yep.
Because now you have to have either a new goal, a new purpose, maybe a different opportunity might open. So you have to be able to go back to that. And so I think really objectively writing stuff down is one of the easiest things to do.
Mm.
Either writing somewhere and then having somebody hold you accountable, I think, is a key part. And it's no one where it's black or white in terms of, oh, you succeed or you failed. No, 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 no.
Mm,
It's more so to get in the mindset of,
mm,
okay, if you need to make adjustments, why? Because
mm.
sometimes even as individuals, we change, our
Yes.
goals change, things change. And so, when those happen, then how do you make the necessary adjustment? I think having something written down helps keep you focused with that.
Wow, wow. Well, thank you so much. As you can see during your conversation, I'm making a few points that I can go back to and reiterate them to our listeners because I think you make some very powerful and insightful points here. And the very last thing that you said is something that really is a big one for me because I think, and especially this is in happens in corporate and in the Christian sect, that we are not flexible. We are so rigid, and so when we set out to do something, like you said, we don't adjust. We don't want
Yeah,
to adjust it.
yeah,
Sometimes, obviously, because of pride.
right,
But
right, right.
I don't know. But it's something that I do see a lot, especially with people who have had success in certain aspects.
Right.
And I think that because I mentioned that I should say a bit about it, because I think one of the biggest challenges in evaluating opportunities is the fact that when you have success in one thing, sometimes it becomes so difficult to try to find the next opportunity so that you can continue to make your impact. So I think that flexibility is so big, and I see
Yeah,
that a lot in the corporate world and also in the Christian sector as well. But thank you so much for that. Like I said, I will be reiterating this throughout the conversation. But I want to ask you an important question. I know everything we're talking about is important,
right.
but are there factors that impact the success of opportunities? Like, are there external factors, internal factors? Are there factors that impact the success of opportunities?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, I think, we talk about preparation meets opportunity equals success, right?
Mm,
So there's a part of that equation that we don't control everything. There's a
mm,
part of that we do. And a lot of that is being humble enough
mm,
in the sense that sometimes, like used an example previously, things may not always go the way we expect it to. But like you
correct.
said, being able to adapt and adjust
Mm,
and being able to take that feedback. My philosophy always is you work on what you control.
mm,
There's
mm,
certain things you can't control no matter what you do. Like when you wake
absolutely.
up today, how the weather is going to be, you don't control that, no matter how hard you try.
Mm,
So even when the opportunity comes, there are certain parameters within that. That's what I meant by sometimes even the opportunities that we get, what the other person on the other side may be expecting from us may be very different from why
mm,
we took that.
mm,
And so at some point you can have a clash,
mm,
or at
mm,
some point you can have some totally different than what you thought you were going to. But I think we are adaptable and flexible enough that sometimes, depending on the opportunity, you can make some lateral moves to make some vertical ones.
mm.
You know, it's not every opportunity that is going to lead to an instant boom. Oh, I hit it, jackpot.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
And so sometimes I think also having that patience is key.
Mm,
Because there sometimes in the quote unquote mundane things, there are a lot of things we can still learn.
absolutely.
There are a lot of things where some of the core values of respect, of
Mm,
being dependable, being professional. There's certain basics that some of us may take it as a given, but there are sometimes others it's not that a given. And
mm,
so
mm.
sometimes God might take you through different routes to build up on those ends before the actual thing you thought you were working on or looking forward to. So I think it's all about, as long as in the end you can see that progression, that growth,
Mm, mm.
so to speak, it's vital.
Wow.
Because you may be working on other things, but if you can way, shape, or form, what you don't want it to be is to be in an environment that one either is toxic,
Mm-hmm.
that can get you even away from the goal.
Mm,
You can be in an environment that you might, it can force you to miss what you set out to do in the first place. And so those are things, I would tell people certain things, if it gets to you so much that you can't even function, that at the core, you start even losing who you are.
Yeah.
Because almost every opportunity to a degree has to tie even into your own core values,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So if it's something that goes against those, then yeah, those are ones you have to minus yourself from that equation.
Wow.
But if not, sometimes you have to be patient enough to even learn from the other side, because there may be other opportunities you don't even know yet
Mm. Mm.
that God may be preparing you for.
Absolutely.
As humans, we can only think so much, we can only plan so much, but especially those of us who are believers, God knows tomorrow. So
Yes.
sometimes you may go the different route than you thought, but as long as you are adaptable, as long as you're humble enough and flexible enough, you might make sense of it later on. Like, oh
Mm.
wow, this is why I had to take that detour.
Mm. Mm.
I tell people it's like going from one place to the other. They may give you 3 or 4 routes. You may have set out to take one route,
Mm-hmm.
but in the wisdom of God, He might take you on a different route. In the end, you get there, but you pick up some other skills along the way, which will make you more refined for that other task He has set for you.
Wow.
And so yes, sometimes there are external factors, but like I said, even those, because sometimes it may be even something where God is prepared to toughen you up,
Mm. Mm.
because it's not always about getting your way.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to go through that phase where not everybody likes you, not
Mm.
everybody thinks you're their favorite person, but you still have to be able to coexist with that person.
Wow. Wow.
So you learn through all of those to make you more matured, so that when you get to the point where you have a lot of power, a lot of influence, you know how to use that.
Wow.
So there is a way to approach all of this, and I think as long as we have that mindset, I'm always saying my mindset is that of a student,
Mm.
always learning.
Mm.
As long as you're open and willing to learn, there's always something to be taught,
Wow.
something to get from it. So that's what I would say to that.
Wow, wow! Thank you so much, and it's very powerful the things that you packed into just that one answer there. As you were talking, one of the things that I couldn't help but realize or remember is we started the year talking about obtaining help in
Mhm.
life on Hour of Healing. And that launched us into a series of conversations. We just recorded our conversation on relationships that I believe will be airing. And I think everything that you're saying also certainly does play a role in there. Because from what you're saying, or from my understanding of what you're saying, one of the things is that the things that you need to do to maintain even certain relationships might be the preparation that you need to do in order to master or have success at the opportunity
Right.
that lies at you. And I can't agree with you more, Dr. J, because there are so many people, I keep saying in our time or in our day, because there is so much healing that needs to take place in
Yeah.
our time, because respect is not what it used to be.
No.
People see respect as an infringement on their right. You
Hmm.
talked about patience, humility.
Right.
Those are all, unfortunately, things that our world today places very little value on.
Right.
But in
Right.
my humble opinion, I will suggest to our listeners that these are the very core
Right.
fundamentals or the basics to success
Right.
at every
Right.
level. And
Right.
unfortunately, because we have put these things on the back burner,
Right.
our definition of success have become more of materialistic rather
Right.
than fulfillment and
Right.
a wholeness. And so I pray that our recording today will certainly bring healing to someone listening somewhere who have probably put these virtues on the back
Right.
burner as well. Because I think you hit the nail on the head that these factors impact the success of opportunity.
Right.
Whether a divine opportunity or a man-made or mundane opportunity, these are values that you mentioned: gratitude, respect, humility, patience.
Right.
These
Right.
are virtues that no matter what the opportunity is,
Right.
can certainly help bring about success of that opportunity. So I am so thankful to you for shedding light on these things for us. Dear friends, thank you so much for joining us for the first part of this conversation. We are talking about evaluating opportunities. Remember, as Dr. Brighter J did go over with us, opportunities are situations or conditions that are favorable to a goal. Join us next week as we pick up on talking about missed opportunities. Yes, every one of us have been there. We have missed opportunities before. And so in our next part of the conversation, we will pick up what to do when we have missed an opportunity. How do we go about it? Do we just fold our hands and sit still and wait for the next opportunity? Or what do you do? Friends, you don't want to miss the concluding part of this conversation. We will see you same time next week. God bless you so much. Thank you. Bye bye.